Welcome in everybody to another lesson. Today we are going to be starting our geometry unit of basic math 2. So we're going to get in a little bit of geometry here. Today we're going to talk about perimeter of shapes. So what is the perimeter exactly? The perimeter is just the distance around the shape, just around the outer edges of the shape. So let's start with the triangle, for example. So let's say you have a triangle, right? And you have one side, let's say 6 inches, another side we'll say 7 inches, and then one side 10 inches. If you want to find the perimeter, which is just the distance around the triangle on the outside, all you have to do is just take the sides, add them together. So you'll add 6 inches plus 7 inches plus 10 inches, which would equal 6 plus 7 is 13 plus 10 is 23. So your perimeter would be 23 inches of this triangle. If you just simply add up all the sides together, it's 23 inches. In fact, for any polygon, polygons are basically they're closed shapes. Three-sided polygons are triangles. That's the smallest. That's the least amount of sides you could have in a polygon is 3 to make it a closed figure. A polygon's a closed figure. Then, of course, you have four-sided ones such as squares, rectangles, parallelograms, rhombuses, kites, trapezoids. Then you have 5-sided pentagons and 6-sided hexagons, and it just keeps going up. But we'll do another triangle here real quick. So another triangle, let's say we have 5 centimeters, 12 centimeters, and then we have 13 centimeters, right? So if you add up the sum of the sides, so the perimeter, which is lowercase p, is equal to 5 centimeters plus 12 centimeters plus 13 centimeters. Which, when we add these together, 5 plus 12 is 17 plus 13 is 30. So the perimeter would be 30 centimeters. That would be the distance around the triangle. And you may be wondering, well, why would you ever want to find the perimeter of a shape? Well, let's apply this to the real world. Let's say you're looking to put up a fence in your yard. The fence that you're going to need, the amount of fencing you're going to need is the perimeter of the property. You're going to put up as much fencing as there is the perimeter of your property. Whether it be like 100 feet or 200 feet along an edge, so on. You're going to add up the sides to fence in your yard. But we've dealt with triangles. Let's say I'll draw a pentagon here with each side having 3 millimeters. Each side has, we want millimeters. Each side has a length of 3 millimeters, right? So, of course, you're just going to add up all 5 sides to get the perimeter. You'll have 3 millimeters plus 3 millimeters plus 3 millimeters plus 3 millimeters plus 3 millimeters. Well, we know if we add 3 together 5 times, that'll give you 15 millimeters. So the perimeter of this pentagon would be 15 millimeters. Pentagon being a 5-sided figure. You just add up each side together and you'll get a perimeter of 15 millimeters. Now, when we get to 4-sided figures, there's some shortcuts we can use. Let's start with a rectangle. let's start with a rectangle here. So we have a rectangle, and we have this here is called your length. The long part on the bottom and at the top is also your length. On the side you have the width. And in a rectangle, both pairs of opposite sides have the same length, or they have the same amount of length. So the length in this here is equal. The width is equal on each side too. So if I decide to make, let's say I decide to make the length 9 feet, and I make the width equal 5 feet, well, since this is a rectangle, the width over here will be 5 feet. The length up here will also be 9 feet. So the perimeter is going to be equal to 9 feet. We'll have to do it again because the other length is also 9 feet. Plus the two widths, you have to have 5 feet twice. So then you add these together. 9 plus 9 is 18, plus 5 plus 5, 18 plus 10, that's 28 feet. The perimeter would end up being 28 feet for the rectangle. However, there's a shortcut we can use instead of adding up each individual side. Let's say they gave it to you where, again, you only know one of the sides of each. You only know one of the lengths, 9 feet, one of the widths being 5 feet, and this is a rectangle. The perimeter in a rectangle is equal to 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. You can use that formula to find the perimeter of a rectangle. You can, of course, add up all the sides individually, or you can use the shortcut of 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. So let's say in this case we did that. You would have 2 times the length, which we found to be 9 feet, plus 2 times the width, which was 5 feet, right? Now, this is an order of operation, so the multiplication comes first. 2 times 9 is 18 feet, plus then we do that multiplication of 2 times 5 feet, which would be 10 feet. So your perimeter, again, would be 28 feet. We found it by adding individually, and we found it by using the perimeter formula for a rectangle. 28 feet. Alright, so let's give you another problem here. Let's see. Now that we've established what the length is in a rectangle, what the width is. So, of course, the bottom and the top are your length, the left and right sides are your width in a rectangle. Now, let's say we decide that the length would be 20 meters. Well, 20 meters, the width would be 10 meters. So the width is 10 meters. We can do the perimeter formula of twice the length plus twice the width to get the perimeter of this rectangle. So if we do that, we'll have 2 times 20 meters for the length plus 2 times 10 meters for the width. Order of operations dictates we do multiplication first. 2 times 20, well, that's 40 meters, plus 2 times 10 is 20 meters. So your perimeter is going to be equal to 60 meters. So if you're looking to put up a 60-meter fence around a nice rectangular yard such as that, that's what you would get. If you knew the length of your yard was 20 meters and the width was 10 meters, you would have a 60-meter fence to put around your perimeter. Alright, so that's for a rectangle. Let's talk about squares. So a square is special because in a square, all 4 sides are equal. It doesn't matter. Let's see. You have a side. The side is equal on all of these. You'll get the same thing. Of course, you can add up, oh, I'm going to do, let's say it's 5 miles this time. Let's say a side of this square is 5 miles. We know that in a square, all 4 sides are equal, so the perimeter, you would add 5 miles plus 5 miles plus 5 miles plus 5 miles. If we add 5 together 4 times, you'll get 20 miles. So your perimeter would be 20 miles. Or you can use the fact that the perimeter of a square, you could simply know the perimeter of a square is 4 times the side. It's S being a side, 4 times a side. I made S a side, so perimeter is 4 times one of the sides. So let's try the formula here for this one. Perimeter would equal 4 times one of the sides, being 5 miles. Well, yes, 4 times 5 equals 20. You would in fact get 20 miles as your perimeter. Knowing 4 times a side is a lot quicker than having to add up each side individually. Now, it's really nice too when, let's say, they give you one side of a square. They tell you it's a square, but you only have the length of one side. Well, you can know in a square that every side is the same. Even if you only know one, every other side, the other 3 sides will be the same length. So we have 1.5 kilometers for the length of this square. We can use the perimeter formula of 4 times 1.5 kilometers. Whoops, we got to have the units. That's very important. You definitely want to have your units. So 4 times 1.5, well, that's just 6. So the perimeter of this square would be 6 kilometers. And really, there is nothing much to do on perimeter. It's just simply adding up sides. Let's do another triangle, because there really isn't a shortcut for doing triangles. 7, 9, and 11. Oh, what's the unit going to be? You know what? We haven't picked on this one. How about 7 hectometers? Yeah, 9 hectometers, 11 hectometers. So let's say we have a triangle that has side lengths of 7 hectometers, 9 hectometers, and 11 hectometers. So the perimeter, since there is no shortcut in a triangle, unfortunately, is going to be 7 hectometers plus 9 hectometers plus 11 hectometers. So 7 plus 9 is 16, plus 11 is 27. So your perimeter is going to be 27 hectometers. That would be your perimeter, 27 hectometers. And let's see, then we'll do a rectangle again. We'll do another rectangle. So let's say we only know the width is 5 inches, the length is 12 inches, right? So we have a width of 5 inches, a length of 12 inches in this rectangle. The perimeter of a rectangle, remember, is equal to twice the length plus twice the width. So we could stick in this formula, twice the length is 2 times 12 inches, plus twice the width, which is 2 times 5 inches. Now we just do the order of operations. 2 times 12, well, that's 24 inches. Plus 2 times 5, well, that's going to be 10 inches, which would give you a perimeter of 34 inches. So yeah, your perimeter would be 34 inches based on that formula of twice the length plus twice the width for the perimeter of a rectangle. Let's do the perimeter of a square. Alright, let's do a square. Lousy square, but it'll suffice. So, a square, remember, every side is equal. So, let's say it's equal to 20 yards. We haven't really picked on yards today, so we have a side length of 20 yards for a square. The perimeter of a square is equal to 4 times a side, which in this case would be equal to 4 times 20 yards. 4 times 20, that's 80. So the perimeter of this square would actually be 80 yards. And that would be it. So if you can remember those formulas for a rectangle and a square, or at the very least, remember that all you got to do to find the perimeter is add up the sides together, and then you'll get your perimeter. So next lesson, we are going to talk about the area, which is a little bit different than perimeter. It's actually quite a bit different. We're going to talk about the area of a rectangle, the area of a square, and the area of a triangle. So I hope everybody has a good night. Take care.